Hey there, welcome to the 36th session. In the last couple of sessions, we have configured the identity and JWT, as well as created action for authenticating user, as well as added the some dummy users and roles. In this session, we will integrate the authentication with the GraphQL API. HTTP user context will not accessible from the various places. So we will be able to authenticate and authorize the user. For this, we need to create a new class that contains the reference to the claims of the user. Before this, we need to add the NuGet package for GraphQL authorization in both GraphQL model as well as the API. Let's create a class with the name GraphQL user context. It will inherit from the dictionary of a string and object, as well as implements the I provide claim principal interface. This interface has the single property for claim principal user. We need to create that property here. Now we need to inform the GraphQL that this will be the use as the user context. For this, open the configure service extension. After adding the GraphQL service, call the add user context builder and set the user details from the HTTP context user. Along with this, we also need to add the other GraphQL services for authentication. For this, create a new extension method, add custom GraphQL auth, add HTTP context accessor, authorization evaluator, authorization validation rule, in a GraphQL, we need to create the policy based on which authentication will perform. Add a new singleton, create a authorization setting, using add policy, add a policy name, and expression for validating that policy detail. For customer policy, the role must be the customer. Copy paste it and update it for restaurant. In the case of admin, we will check for the three claims. And return the auth settings. We also need to call this method from the startup. We have set it up auth in the GraphQL. We just need to specify the policy for queries only. Open the queries. For example, if you want new order details should be only visible to the restaurant user only. For this, we need to use the authorize with extension method on a field. It take the policy name. Let me set the restaurant policy for this query. Save all the file and run the project. Create a new query for new order. Execute it. Here we got an error. You are not authorized to run this query. Required claim for restaurant is not present. Open the Postman. Generate the token for user having the restaurant role. Copy this token. Open the HTTP headers. Within that, add the authorization. Write a bearer and paste the token and execute this. Here we got the response as we have used the valid token. For each query, we can specify the policy in authorize with extension method. For example, if you want to allow only admin to access the order details, we can even also specify the authorization to all the query. For this, we need to call the method with the this operator. Here we have just added the single policy, but we can also specify the multiple policies too. But in our case, it will be useless as we have created policy for each role, and each user will be only in the single role. Let's see what we have learned in this session. First of all, we have created the GraphQL user context that has a single property and set it after the adding GraphQL services. Then we have added the other services required by the GraphQL auth, as well as we created the authorization setting and set the required claims for each policy. Using the authorization extension method, we can assign a policy name that must satisfy for executing this query. We can also set it for all the queries by calling it with this operator. But not that, because we have enabled authentication on the all query, we will unable to load the schema or docs because it also use the query for obtaining the schema detail. So I have commented out. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next session.